actually physically designed to handle. You know, there's a theory in the spiritual world where, let's say people meditate or they take drugs to elevate their consciousness. The inevitable question is, why can't I stay there? It's because you're not physically attuned to actually maintain the vibrational frequency you're in. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're all operating in an elevated state of consciousness that we can't actually maintain. But yet, we have to deal with it. And if we don't, the guy next to us, the girl next to us will figure it out. It might intersect in our business, it might intersect in our social lives. It certainly is intersecting in our politics, in our social cultures, how we judge what's fair and not fair. For example, when the Supreme Court passed down the gay marriage decision, as it would be commonly referred to, there were a lot of opinion pieces written about how this would have been unfathomable even 8 years ago. That the speed of that decision from where the culture was 8 years ago, and let's not forget 8 or 9 years ago, both Obama and Hillary Clinton opposed gay marriage. So how did the Democratic side, those candidates, and obviously now the president, how did that culture that existed that was commonly, like, there wasn't a revolt when they took those positions. Obviously a lot of people were happy about it, but I'm saying it wasn't a revolt. If they took that position today, there'd be a revolt. So how did the consciousness move that fast in 8 years? I'm not making a political statement. I'm talking about it strictly as how do people go from one idea to another? That's unprecedented in human history if you look at generally the speed cultures move. Because you have to convince a lot of people of a lot of things before they kind of switch their mind. So when you talk about the way artists are viewed, politics are viewed, we're moving at a very high speed. So the album is basically one person's, how do I deal with all this whirlpool swirl around me? Nothing to do with celebrity. More to do with the technocratic society that's being built up, that's penetrating my consciousness, that's looking in my windows. And I'll give you a perfect example. I mean, drones are now, permissible in a lot of states. Does that mean every celebrity is going to have to live literally with the shades drawn all the time? There are people who've already reported that we're talking about normal citizens. Like, lady steps out of the shower and looks out the window and there's a fucking drone right there. And she's on the second floor. Now, in the old days, that was called the peeping Tom because the guy's climbing up the ladder. But that's legal. I'm saying we're dealing with a lot of stuff we're not ready to deal with. So it was not a reaction so much as a kind of a processing, an open process.
But is that just today? I mean, if you think back as to, say, since the Industrial Revolution, as society has been pushing itself so hard, constantly, never stopping.
I think it's a fantastic. I think it's a fantastic point, and I would say this is the biggest shift in human consciousness since the Industrial Revolution. Since basically the Victorian 1870 kind of, now we're going to assembly line workers, and this is the biggest shift since then, in terms of what human beings are dealing with on an intrapersonal level, and how it's affecting their daily lives. So, in essence, the album deals in many ways with the personal, interpersonal, impersonal state of modern society, obviously more so in the West, but soon it'll be everywhere. Because you go to India and everybody's got a cell phone. They may be poor and they may be living with the dirt floor, a lot of people do. I mean, I saw incredible poverty when I was in India, but I guarantee they all have a cell phone because you have to have a cell phone to operate in modern life. So now they're connected to the worldwide consciousness, and yet they're still living in abject poverty. It's quite fascinating because in essence that says the value of needing to be connected is actually higher than the value of living in, let's call it a modern domicile. And you can exponentially throw those ideas out in about 10,000 different directions. So, anybody else?
I work with veterans.
Very good, thank you.
So I work actually in suicide prevention, and so I'm very curious as to how this has become an advocacy issue for you. I know you have veterans in your family, but is there something more to this?
Yeah, I mean, I have friends who've served, and as a casual observer, as somebody who's sort of like, reads the paper, so to speak, whatever that means anymore. I started thinking because I remember I met a lot of Vietnam guys in the early 70s, got friends of my dad, stuff like that. And I remember people talking about doing, like people would say, oh, he did 4 tours. I was like, whoa, 4 tours, right? And then you meet, and now I meet guys come back 8 tours. You think wait a second, the stress of that can't be any less than it was. You know what I mean? And you just started doing the math, the extended stays, people who would sign up for the National Guard who weren't really expecting to see, extended combat duty, and suddenly now they're thrust into situations that they didn't necessarily prepare for, even though they signed up for it. And then you get into like loyalty duty, lack of mission purpose, blah, 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 all the political stuff. So I felt there was just this massive roaring gap in American society where people say, oh, I love the vets and I support the vets, but I didn't see the infrastructure there. And certainly from the, let's call it the celebrity community, I mean, it's a deafening silence.
I totally agree.
And so working with Easter Seals Dixon Center and getting smartened up, as we say in the wrestling business, trying to understand, well, what's the real conversation to have? And can I take some of those ideas into the American public? And the biggest thing I've learned in the short term is we need to sort of rebrand the idea of what PTSD means versus what would have been in the past called war trauma, which is, wouldn't you expect someone who's seen combat or been under an incredibly stressful situation, wouldn't you expect them to be traumatized on some level? It's an understanding. But when people are labeled with PTSD, which is a medical diagnosis, it's seen as a disability. So a lot of people are walking in and they're being seen as they're having something that's disabling, as opposed to a condition that needs to be worked through and reintegrated into the community. And I think just that shift in the conversation, which is starting to take place, is going to be very powerful for vets to come back into American life and not be seen as, oh, yeah, he's kind of got over here. It's not like that at all in 99% of the cases.
I appreciate your advocacy. This is huge. I mean, what you're saying is exactly what I've noticed as well.
Well, that's great to hear. And what's that?
What's our number right now? Is it 22 per day we're losing for that? 22
Yeah,
per day?
actually about 35 per day.
Yeah, I mean, that's 1 in 5 female veterans is homeless.
Yeah.
I hope I'm quoting that statistic right. I mean, that's a staggering statistic. And as was pointed out to me, when you're talking about female vets, then you're talking about the kids too.
Yes.
So you're talking about thousands and thousands of lives being impacted. And I really do trust, regardless of my politic with the American society today, I do trust the American spirit that generally speaking, when Americans see a problem, they want to solve it. But the problem is there's so much propaganda and there's so many hands out, it really has to be deciphered so people can see it very simply, and then they will apply their own value systems back into their own communities. So I've taken some minor flack for not being more like, you should donate to this and do this. I don't think that's helpful at all. It is, but in my position, what's more helpful is changing the dialogue so people would then turn around and be personally interested in how they can help.
I agree. Within our families and communities, that's where it starts.
That's my whole message that I'm working with the Easter Seals Dixon Center. We got a lot of people who are much more powerful than me, can raise a lot of sums of money. There are big corporations that are willing to write big checks. Great. Not against any of that. But there's a glaring hole in our local community systems for what we need to do to reintegrate, and then what's job training. Like one of my friends works with the military right now, and they're actually started this program. I wish I knew the name for it, but they're training vets before they get out. So they're getting truck licenses.
Yeah.
So they actually, when they literally walk out the door from being a vet and they go right into a job. So they don't have that 2 or 3 month lag of organization and then boom, they're home, can't get a job, depression, all the stuff that you would imagine would happen. It seems completely logical. So now they're getting proactive, trying to stem that tide so that people are walking out right into a job. They said when vets have jobs coming out of the surface, the mental health issues, the depression issues, the need for meds, goes exponentially down. Makes sense. Pride is a big issue for anybody, myself included.
A lot of lip service being paid out there, and so I appreciate that you're actually doing something.
Yeah, I'm more of I want to get my hands in the dirt person. I don't need the big part of it. I'm totally cool to be ground level person.
Appreciate it.
And anybody else?
I don't have a question, but I'm wondering if you would accept a gift. It's a salt and pepper
It's not
shaker
creepy, I
set.
promise.
Is it vintage?
It's kitty cats.
Oh, take
Hand painted kitty
All
cats.
right, come on up.
Okay. And then my brother tie-dyed you a t-shirt. It's got a big ass.
I'm not a tie-dye guy, I'm gonna tell you
I
that.
know, but still. I told him I'd give it to you, so
All right.
it's in there.
What's
You don't
it?
have to open it in front of everybody, but
Well,
That's awesome.
I found it in the Rocky Mountains yesterday. I thought of you when I saw it, so. It's because it's kitty cat.
anybody else?
When you were writing monuments, did you
and Jeff kind of make a conscious decision not to play any guitar solos, or did you just kind of do it song by song?
I always took my whole thing with guitar solos and songs was did they have a arrangement point of view? Like I never wanted to play a solo to show off. It was always, does it lift the song? Does it create a kind of kinetic event? And I think that has been diminished in our culture. When 12-year-olds can play like Eddie Van Halen, the idea of a guitar solo doesn't mean as much. The physical impact of a guitar solo means less. I mean, I see people playing in like, whatever, the American Idol band who are better guitar players than me. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, what's the point? It doesn't have the same
Appeal?
pa-pow. No, it's pa-pow. It's like, hello. I just think it's just not as exciting. So our decision making is always led by excitement, not hey, we got to get our chops in. I mean, Jeff's an incredible guitar player. I mean, Jeff could get solo all over every song. It wouldn't be a problem. And you'll see him play plenty of solos tonight. It's great. But we just didn't feel it had anything to do with what we were doing. So, all right, one more question. Is it a good one?
I hope so. It might be kind of boring, but like type A to type A, when you talk about your, like how you're approaching work ethic and working 22 hours to provide a great show, how do you approach goal setting and like measuring your achievements in this phase of your life?
I kind of work two approaches. I think you've got to have the big dream. Like you've got to have the big dream. What is the biggest dream? You've got to have it. Do not diminish that dream. Whether or not you ever get there that's beside the point. You've got to have the big, what's on the other side of the rainbow dream. Conversely, you need step-by-step processes that you can actually accomplish. Right? So I'll meet people and they'll say, I really wish people would want to hear my songs. And I'll say, okay, that's I can relate, right? How many hours a week do you work on songwriting? 0. Well, chances are no one's going to fucking listen to your songs. Okay? Can you spend, well, I'm really busy, I got kids. Okay,